Welcome to Podcast Vlogging, Tips and Tricks with Alex Merced. On this podcast, we're going to talk about podcast hosting, podcast recording, promoting, and monetization. We'll also interview podcast hosts about what works and what doesn't work in the podcasting world. If you enjoy the show, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/Alex Merced. Also, if you need hosting for your podcast or your website, head over to libertydeal.info to find out about great deals along with special benefits for taking advantage of those deals. Thank you very much. Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced, and you listen to Podcasting and Vlogging Tips and Tricks. And on this week's episode, basically the focus is on leveraging your audience. Okay? The best way to build your audience is to love your audience by basically, one, oftentimes expressing how much you appreciate them listening to the show, like you guys. Thank you for listening to the show. That's why I'm doing this week. I don't do this to talk to myself. I do this because there's other people who also want a podcast and they want to know how and they want to know the tips to do it. And your successful podcasts make this all worth it. So if any of you have had some experience podcasting after listening to this show and would like to tell me more about your experience, shoot me an email. I'll be glad to read it on future episodes. So shoot me an email telling me what podcast you started, what's it about, and how's it been going so far, and what tips from the show you've used, and what tips you'd like me to share on future episodes. I'll be more than glad to share your tips with the listeners of the podcast. And again, there's an example of leveraging. Well, I mean it. I want you guys to message me. And again, you guys can shoot me a message by just emailing me at alexmerced@alexmerced.com. You can also message me at one of my bajillion Facebook pages. But probably best alexmerced@alexmerced.com. But the idea is get your audience to interact with you. One way is such as that. So there, you're aiding me by providing me content. So if you send me a letter with tips, one, I'm going to plug your podcast. I'm going to say, Bob from Bob's podcast, send me this email, and then I'm plugging your tips. So basically, your back gets scratched because your podcast is being promoted. So sending in letters to other people's podcasts is another good way to promote yourself and getting involved with other people's podcasts. But at the same time, again, you're providing content for this show. Other ways you can do this is encourage people to leave reviews. So make an investment and buy, a free giveaway. So something like, let's say you can buy bags, get canvas bags made for like 99 cents a piece, buy like 300 of them, and then say anybody who writes a review for your podcast, all they have to do is email you and then you'll mail them a bag. Then they have a bag with your podcast logo on it. They're promoting your podcast, and at the same time they left you a review. And again, create a group. You always want to have a Facebook group for your podcast, so that way the people in your community, they get to know each other, they become attached, they become invested. Now, I have a Facebook group for my main podcast. I don't have one for this podcast, but I'll probably start one. Okay, so stay tuned. There will probably be a Facebook group for podcasting for this particular podcast. So check it out. And aside from that, it's all about your audience. So again, if you create good content, you let them tell you what content they want. So feel free to ask them for topics. Same thing for you guys. If there's something you particularly want me to talk about on this podcast, shoot me an email and I'll be more than glad to cover it. But your audience can pretty much tell you how to grow your audience. And again, finding ways to encourage your audience to grow your audience can go that much further. So all the best podcasters, all the fastest growing podcasts I've always noticed, do a good job of leveraging their audience in different ways, of basically using their audience to generate content, promote the podcast, and then, as you get advertising and affiliate marketing and stuff like that, maybe even sometimes help finance the podcast. But bottom line, first you got to build it, and everything else comes along after that. So that's this week's episode of the podcast. I'll see you guys next week. Keep me updated with what you guys are doing. Again, you can email me at alexmerced@alexmerced.com. Thank you very much.